Hey, I'm And.
And I'm Beck.
And we are the Gold Diggers, because we believe there's gold found in everyone.
Everyone is unique, interesting and exciting with a great story to share.
And we aim to find it.
The question is, can we rise to the challenge and strike gold? Stay tuned to find out as we chat to today's mystery guest.
Honey, you're my sugar.
So this is how it works. One of us knows who the mystery guest is and the other one doesn't. And today it's Angie's turn to find the gold in our mystery guest, Lauren Kevu. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you.
You too.
Thanks for joining us.
So, and a couple of little things I'm going to tell you about Lauren is that she has a husband who you know. So Adam.
Yes, he's been on our podcast, I believe, already.
Our podcast. So for those who have heard Adam's story, you're now going to hear the other side of that story through
So
Lauren.
I already know the Solomon Islands.
Yes.
Like, we'll feature in this one.
Yes.
That's where Adam is from.
That's right.
I'm probably going to pull out loads from that interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's other things you're going to learn in this podcast today. So, and
Beautiful.
Lauren
I'm looking forward to getting to know
has
you.
3 gorgeous little boys. So I'm going to send you out of the room.
Okay, I'll see you soon.
Honey, you're my sugar.
Okay. So now we're going to talk to our listeners about you, Lauren. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
It's so great to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here. This is pretty special.
Yeah, and we've had your sister on the show too,
Yes.
Elise Pappas.
Yes.
Yes.
She is a golden child.
Oh. Well, there's so much gold in all of you. Today we're going to talk about you. So, Lauren, what I know about you already is that I love your smile. You're always just beaming such joy wherever you go.
Oh, thank you.
And you really are such a great encourager of others. You really just love on people and you have this great heart that you share with everyone around you. And I know that you are such a beautiful mum and you're also an amazing businesswoman and you also have a heart for the Solomon Islands.
Yes.
There was something you sent to me about the death of a dream. So I'm really keen to go into that with Ange when she comes back in.
Yes.
So on that note, let's call Ange back in and
Oh,
we'll get
great.
into your story.
Honey, you're my sugar.
Welcome back to the room, Ange.
Thank you. You know when you instantly regret that you left your phone? I felt like I was out there ages. And now I realise how dependent on my phone I am because I started getting withdrawals. I actually had to look up and look around me.
Are you getting the shakes, Ange?
I know.
What
I'm
should
like,
I do?
I need my phone fixed. What's going on? I won't make that mistake again.
We're back in here now, so it's all good.
That's actually really sad, isn't it? The fact we're so dependent on
so
our
dependent,
phones.
yeah.
Like waiting rooms. Okay, who uses their phone in the toilet? Producer Dave.
video, right?
arm
On a
raised.
very rare occasion.
Yeah. I am a toilet Facebooker or gamer.
Usually there's too many people
this too
waiting
much
for our
information?
bathroom. So.
Yes, well, over to you, Lauren. So obviously we've had Adam in the studio and so I know the whole story of how you guys get together. So I'm not going to go there because we elaborated on that so beautifully. So I want to talk about you as a child because you're one of a number of siblings, are you?
Yeah, 3. There's 3 of us.
And where do you come?
I'm the eldest.
Okay.
Yes.
So as the eldest, then
Yes.
obviously I think it's a generalisation that there is responsibilities you take on for your younger
Definitely.
siblings.
Yes.
Is that how it was for you?
Oh, absolutely. Although I'm sure my sister Elise would say that I reneged on that responsibility for quite a while.
Right.
Actually, interesting fact, that was part of my salvation story was that we were driving out to Toowoomba. We both were uni students. We both went off the rails, but I did it in the typical way. I lived the full college experience.
Party life.
Yes, I was a hippie. I did all the hippie things.
I can't imagine you as a
I
hippie.
don't know. When you say hippie,
No, we hide all those photos.
like the long hair.
Long hair, like op shop clothes, which are fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
I just not the same version of op shop clothes now.
But by that you mean they mismatched, all the patterns just didn't seem to.
Yeah, and
right,
it felt
got
cool, but it wasn't. And you know the crazy parties and the live your heart out till Friday night and then party hard and don't too hard. But secret little thing, Elise was also naughty, but in like a healthier, positive way. Like she was like Sporty Spice. But also living the party life. Yeah. But yeah, I remember we were on a trip, a family wedding out to Toowoomba, and in the car together, and we used to really butt heads growing up, and she turned to me and she said, "Why can't you be an older sister that I can look up to?"
Wow, that hits hard.
That got me.
What's the age gap?
19 months.
Oh, not much
yeah,
at all.
not much. And we were really close, obviously, as children growing up and everything. It was just those high school years that got us, like everybody, and then young adult years. So that really, I think that was definitely part of my story and just rethinking my life and purpose and all those big questions. And and then eventually went to church, salvation, everything, and she wasn't too far behind, which was amazing. And so then we got to be new Christians, and we became like best friends that we are now.
So you got involved in the church.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that moment then. So you're living the party life.
Yes.
And then is it the realisation that your sister is disappointed in who you are?
Yeah, I think
that actually changed things for you.
That was definitely a seed. It was a bit of a journey. It was probably still a year or two later. But yeah, things had started to just niggle away at my heart again that I don't think this is the life that I'm meant to be living. And honestly, there's a really old hymn, I think, that says, "You lifted me out of the miry clay." And when I sing that, that it just gets me, because I know that, that's where I was. And I know God literally lifted me out. And I know that I would have gone one of two ways. I could not see any purpose. I'd gone to India, I'd studied Buddhism and all the different religions, and nothing gave me purpose, and it just circled me all the way back to Jesus. And so we grew up in a church that was aging, I guess, and so I didn't know anything about the Holy Spirit or different way of churches that were more, I guess, youthful and a bit more energy and this type of thing. But I got to a stage in that phase of my life where I just knew I needed to get back to church and I needed my life to change. I knew it didn't look like what I'd grown up in, because I just knew I needed a change, and that wasn't it. Yeah.
So help me through the process of that decision making. With all your uni friends, and what did that look like? You knew you needed to change your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So was it gradual, or did you make an immediate break?
Parts of it was sudden, and then other parts. So it all really culminated in a weekend. At the time, I was living with a guy. His name was Adam as well, which is why my Adam is so special.
I remember the first Adam and the second Adam, that your Adam said.
That's right, exactly. My Adam's the redemption. And it was actually his mother who came down, and she'd just not long herself gone back to church. And so she was just, Jesus, 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 telling. And that was the weekend I said, I need to turn my life around. And so we prayed, and she arranged for her best friend in Bundaberg's daughter in Brisbane, because we were in Brisbane, came and picked me up at 8 a.m. Sunday morning and took me to church, and that was it. Like, I've never turned around. I didn't know that girl. I didn't know where I was going. I wore an outfit that was completely inappropriate for church, probably. And
you're very trusting.
I look back at it now, and I think I would never normally do that. But yeah, that was it. That relationship broke up. He wasn't interested in it continuing, and due to church, and because I think as well, I was starting to not need all those other things to feel joy and happiness and fulfillment. And so that just, couldn't understand that naturally. And so, I moved in with my Connect leaders, and
I think sometimes, particularly when you go through a breakup, because you said that was a part of that journey for you. At the time, you think it's the most devastating thing.
Yes.
But in hindsight, you look back and you think, that was just the best thing to have ever happened, because you didn't know what was ahead.
Exactly.
Like a turning point in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was someone who, I think in a discipleship journey, you think, like, you don't know, I'm a new Christian, I don't know these things. And I sort of journeyed for a little bit, and an older friend eventually sort of said to me, you know, God has an amazing way for us to live that brings the blessing of God into our lives. And part of that is, you know, waiting till you're married and da-da-da-da. And so, yeah, just I suppose gently but lovingly brought into question the way that I was living, but in a really non-judgmental kind of way, a way that really helped me and helped me to see another way that I wasn't aware of.
Let's go back to like early childhood.
Yes,
What kind of kid were you? Were you the mischievous one that would get your siblings into trouble, or?
No, never.
You were the responsible one.
Oh, no. I don't think I've really ever, you know, I do think my younger sister is very much more responsible than me. But no,
Did you grow up remotely? Or?
We grew up Brisbane to start, and then, up in North Queensland from about grade 6 onwards. So, and we moved around a few times up there. Yeah. Yeah, so it was an adventure. I've had to settle myself now because we probably moved every 2 years. Yeah, wow. And so I find every 2 years I get a little bit itchy, but I've learnt just to, that's okay.
2 years is not very long.
No, it's not. Exactly.
Like you must constantly be living in suitcases if that's the case.
Right, exactly. Making new friends. And
I'm going through the moving process right now. I would not want to be doing that every 2 years.
That's for sure. Yeah.
But much like you, Beck, actually, because you moved a lot as well.
We moved a lot. Being a pastor's kid.
Yes.
But then I guess that gives you a really good social skills, maybe.
Definitely.
Because you're able to reconnect with and make new friendships easily.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you have to be adaptable, don't you? Or you grow to be adaptable.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think so. You do definitely pushes you out of your comfort zone to make new connections. And
so I know that not long after that then you went into church, you met Adam.
Yes.
You've got married, it all happened really fast, and now you've got 3 kids.
Yes, boom.
And now you're on the Sunshine Coast.
Yes, that's right. Living the dream.
So I fast-tracked you.
You did.
To, you're sat here with a T-shirt on that says Zoe Allied Health.
Yes.
Yeah, so can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, so Zoe Allied came out of, actually we launched Zoe Global, which is our not-for-profit or ministry, and Allied came out of walking into a board meeting where we were about to start talking about fundraising and how to do that. And I was working as a speechie for another practice.
A speechie?
Oh, sorry, speech pathologist, yes.
You think you'd know how to say it. Sorry.
I'm like, no, it's good.
Let's say after me, speech pathologist.
This is just Aussies, isn't it? We abbreviate everything.
Good speech pathologist.
Everything. It's just
okay, as a speechie.
Yes, as a speechie. It was like just this moment where I had this realization that we've managed teams before in church life and loved it. I love working with teams of people. And, you know, here I am trying to fundraise for something when I've got this thing in my hand, and I've worked privately on my own before, but wasn't really keen to do that again. But just it was like it dawned on me that,
so this is like an NGO, is that what?
No, this is a private company.
Okay.
So we initially did start them all under the one umbrella. We've ended up separating them into 2 legal entities for risk's sake.
So Zoe Allied Health is a speech therapist.
It's speech pathology, occupational therapy, dietetics, nutrition and support work.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is a mouthful.
That's why. Speechies, OTs, DTs.
Yeah. Oh, I totally get that now.
Yeah.
So what does your day-to-day look like?
Partly clients. I still see a few special clients, and then working with my team, supporting them to do and live out their best life, and then overall just trying to improve what Zoe Allied is and offers to the community, and our vision is to be a blessing locally and globally and to help people enjoy life more. So,
and this has really come in leaps and bounds, and really the last 2 years especially has seen great growth for your business, hasn't it?
Yes, my forehead is slightly wrinklier than previous, but that's okay.
So what kind of person would need speech pathology?
Yeah, so we predominantly work with children or pediatrics and teenagers, and then we also see a few legacy or senior clients. So we work with children with autism or other developmental delays over to stroke rehabilitation. Yeah, a whole variety of...
I'll never forget that movie, The King's Speech.
Yes. Is
it a bit similar to
right.
that?
We don't put rocks in people's mouths anymore.
That's good. Not real hygienic.
No, we certainly aren't recommending cigarettes anymore. But
I love that movie. It's so good to see the progression as well. That must be quite rewarding for you.
It really is. We always talk about celebrating the smallest of the wins, because we know, the family and then we, the therapists, know how hard we've actually all had to work together to get those little wins. Yeah. So we have to celebrate that.
I imagine for stroke victims to actually see them go from that real struggle of being able to pronounce their words to having full-on conversations. That must be so rewarding for you.
It is. It's amazing.
And is it a long journey to recovery?
It is. It can be. It can be shorter for some, longer for others. That's always the hard part. We used to use the phrase therapy's as long as a piece of string, but we try not to say that anymore. It doesn't. But
that's
a
good success rate.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So some people, the good thing that we have learnt now, research tells us that stroke rehab goes on lifelong now. So we used to think there was this magical window after a stroke that we had time to make things better. Now we know the brain is always growing and developing and relearning. So there's hope. There's always hope.
So what got you into speech therapy in the first place?
I actually went to uni to become a doctor or a surgeon. I started that, and this old grumpy professor got up and he said, "You're going to be paying $50,000 a year in insurance, and you'll be 40 years old before you actually are a surgeon standing there doing anything." And at the time, I'm 17, and I'm living in Brisbane, and that life that I was living, like the idea of being in uni for another 20 years and that much money at the time, so...
We've learnt not to listen to grumpy old men.
No, that's right. So I grabbed the QTAC book and I started flicking through, and I'd not really heard of speech therapy before, but I like talking and I wanted to help people, so they seemed to go together. So that's how I kind of ended up in it. I was in third year and I was sitting there and I was sitting and studying how to reteach kids how to articulate their sounds. So specifically I was learning how to teach a child how to say B. And I was really struggling at that point because of this love that I've had for other cultures. I really found it hard knowing there's children overseas who can't even feed themselves, and I'm learning how to teach a child how to say B. It just doesn't seem as important. And so now I like to think that I've landed on being able to do a mixture of both, because learning to say but is very important. If you can't, children can't be understood. There will be jobs and they'll get teased at school and jobs that they aren't able to take, and it affects someone when you can't communicate as you'd like to. But through doing that, now we're also able to help overseas with children who...
Which is really where your heart is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I love helping people, obviously, but there's just always been something in me that has been attracted to other cultures. Obviously, marrying my husband.
Yeah, I know. Is that kind of since you've met Adam, or was it prior?
No, it was always. So even when we were younger, Mum and Dad took us on a big trip to the United States. I think I was 15. We were there for 8 weeks, and my favourite day was the day that we went to Tijuana. Yeah, just seeing streets that were different, people that communicated and acted in different ways. And then I spent 3 months in India when I was 19 and just loved it.
Just on your own?
Yeah, went over and did a volunteer.
What did you go out there for?
Went to do a volunteer program. It was an English and orphanage program where you lived with a host family, and it was an excellent program. And it was in southern India, so very traditional. But that was when the tsunami hit.
Oh, wow.
All those years ago. Yeah.
That's a huge thing for a 19-year-old to do.
Yeah.
Like what made you want to do that, and how courageous was that for you?
At the time, you just don't. I think of it now. I think of my own children doing it. And what?
I know.
And
I've got a 19-year-old. I'm like, I don't want him to do that.
That's right. You're not allowed to listen to this. it was actually at that moment where I was studying,
Yeah.
and I had that sort of crisis point in my degree of, is this really important? And that's when I went and did 3 months. I did it during my uni break, but Mum and Dad, they were pretty insistent about me coming home.
Yeah.
They were worried that I wouldn't. I think I was talking about becoming a yoga teacher instead. Multifaceted.
So you were there 3 months?
Yeah,
and you
3
stayed
months. Yes. With this host family, and there was another German volunteer with me as well. She went to India to catch up on her reading, so we didn't quite gel.
Right. She didn't want to talk.
I was the one getting dropped off the school bus, in town, so I could just wander through. And
yes, because you've done speech therapy, so you like to talk,
right,
and then she likes to read, which means she needs quiet.
That's right.
Probably not the best combination.
No, that's right. I don't know what they were thinking.
So you'd got this love for travel, love for different cultures,
Yes,
and obviously met Adam from the Solomon Islands. So how much has Adam's background or where he's come from really been involved in your life now?
Yeah, when I went and met his family, at first, when Adam said to his mum, "Oh, I've met this white girl."
Yeah. Blonde,
Yes.
white, nice,
Blonde,
beautiful,
blonde white
pale
girl.
skin.
Yeah. I think before he'd left the Solomons, his mum had said, "Do not marry, or do not get involved with an Aussie girl, because
Their trouble.
yeah, and
us Aussies.
and the
culture.
the divorce rates was the issue, because
Really, between like mixed cultures?
Yeah, well, and no, I think just the Australian divorce rates.
Right,
So,
okay.
in the Solomons, they don't get divorced.
Yeah.
They at times should, because DV is still a thing,
Yes,
and
yeah.
that side of things. But we're working on that. But yeah, so it was that concern. So I was pretty nervous about meeting her, obviously. And she was just this amazing warrior woman who's entrepreneurial and a deacon in the church and incredible mum and woman. And so I had to meet her Australian best friend. That was kind of, I knew we were going to this dinner to meet this woman that Adam had said she'll make a decision.
Right.
Let my mum know,
Wow.
and we'll work
Really?
with that. And I'm like, this is great. Okay.
Now, take me to that moment, okay? Because you're now going to meet.
Oh.
It's almost like by proxy.
Yes.
You're meeting
Yes.
your mother-in-law,
Terrifying.
and you know that it's a vetting process.
Yes, that's right.
As a speech therapist, did you manage to keep your words intact? Stumbling over my words everywhere.
No, it was very nerve-wracking all the way down. And what Adam had told me about this woman, she'll tell you straight if something's up. And so knew I was kind of walking into.
You must have really
Scary
loved
moment.
him, Lauren.
I did.
You must have known he was the right
It was
one.
a real, yes, there was a word.
And she obviously liked you, Lauren.
Well, we sat and we had dinner, and it was interesting. We went out to this farm. It was a couple of hours away. And we're sitting at dinner, and I kept looking at her husband, and he just looked really familiar. And it just kept bothering me. And eventually, by the time we finished dinner, I realised, and I said, "Are you related to Roy Jackson?" And he said, "That's my brother. Roy Jackson is my uncle."
Oh, wow.
Keeping it in the family. What are the chances?
And then they said, "Are you Carol's daughter?" I said, "No, I'm Jeanette's daughter." And we made all the connections, and we'd grown up basically attending family weddings together and all sorts of, like, they know my family inside out.
Amazing.
So she became this conduit between Adam's family and my family, who were also freaking out about me marrying Solomon Islander, and was able to tell both sides about how wonderful and lovely and long-term married our family members were, and it was crazy.
That's
and
amazing.
their friendship had started before Adam was even born. They had met through churches and mission trips, and just had been going back and forth for over 25 years. So,
And so when did you
bizarre.
eventually get to meet his mother?
About probably a few months later, I went to the Solomons and met the family and spent about a month there. And it was great. It turned out his mum said, oh, she's like an islander with white skin.
Nice way of putting it.
And I think it came out of the fact that we've got an extended family is quite large. And so our Christmases are you eat and tell stories and sit around together, and then you eat and tell more stories and sit around some more. And that's so
a lot of their cultures,
to the Solomons.
A lot of their cultures around food.
That's right. Yeah, food and just being together, and I love that.
Yeah. So how often do you get to go?
COVID, we didn't go for quite a few years, so we just went back recently in February, and saw everybody, and hoping to get back there in June. But it wasn't. Not too often. Yeah. The last time before COVID was when Zeke was our middle child. He was 2 and he actually got malaria. So that sort of, wasn't.
Oh, that's yucky.
Yeah. So he came out of it okay and everything. But having kids and when you go and the timing of all that is something that you have to think about.
Do they come over and visit you?
They have tried. So for the wedding they tried, but again, we had all those big floods in 2011 and they got sort of stuck in that and stuck in Brisbane, and the wedding was in Townsville. Oh. Yeah, wasn't our best moment, but
that's a shame.
Yeah, they were huge floods, weren't they?
Yeah, it was devastating.
Was that the famous 2011?
That was the big one. Yeah. We were in Townsville, of course, and it's just hot and no sun at all. Yeah. So, but yeah, they got stuck in those. So they ended up spending the few days down in Bow Desert, which was not ideal.
Having come all this way.
Exactly. It was such a big deal to organise.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I know Adam had this heart and passion to give back into the community that he was raised in, and has started Zoe Global Ministries.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're a part of that. So just explain a bit, what does that look like and what are you currently doing?
Yes, Zoe Global is, our missions outreach, our ministry. It's about partnering with communities in developing nations to see them live a blessed life and life eternal as well. And so over the past couple of years, we've just been focusing on establishing relationships with people in the western part of Solomons, which is up near PNG. It's a really remote part, so not too many other NGOs or aid organisations have gone into those communities, and also because it's custom land, so unless you've got an ancestry line there, you aren't allowed on those islands. So communities that are living very traditionally, and the UN still classes the Solomons as one of the least developed nations in the world. And when you're in these villages, you see that. Is
that where Adam was raised?
No, he was raised in Honiara in the capital, and his mum's family comes from one province close to the capital, and then his dad is from the western part, but not from the same areas as where we're going.
So why did you pick there in particular?
It wasn't actually always the Solomons you wanted to end up in, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Desire for Africa.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. That was the lifelong dream. And
well, your life's not over yet, Lauren.
That's right, exactly.
There's still time.
Tell us about that. Tell us about Africa. What happened there?
I think whether it was lots of movies or mum just, encouraging me to always eat my food growing up, and because other children in the world who can't. There was just something
Did she throw that line?
Always.
You have to eat your food because there are other starving children
in Africa. I
had that too. And my brother would always say, well, Mum, put it in the post pack and send it to them. She'd say, don't be cheeky.
Side note here, I actually saw a meme this morning of this comedian guy who was saying, he was fed that line that he has to finish his plate because there are starving children. And now he's got this big belly and he says, I'm doing my bit for world poverty.
This is all the food I didn't waste.
Yes, I didn't waste it and I did it for you.
We all grew up on that one, didn't we?
Yes, exactly.
Who started it though? That's what I want to know.
I know. But I mean, there is some truth in that, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. And that was certainly something I'd really wanted to do all of my life. And when I met Adam and this YWAMer and this missionary who travels and does good for a living, that was the dream. But of course he was coming out of it as we met and wanted to just be in Australia and So we just shelved that everything, got married, but kept reminding our senior pastor at the time, we have this heart, we really would love to go and work with other cultures, whether that looked like you sending us out as missionaries or being a part of a church plant. And eventually 7 years later, we got that opportunity and we were offered to be a part of a team moving to South Africa to take over a church there. And so that was like, the dreams come true. And I'd have these moments of just where I felt like my breath would get taken away. And just in complete awe that it was finally happening, and oh my goodness. And we were still in Townsville at the time, so it meant moving, obviously. And so we sold everything, and we'd sold our cars, we'd sold all of our household goods, and anything we hadn't sold was in a shipment and had actually left Australia and heading to Africa. We'd rented a house, booked in our kids into schools. My mum and dad had actually gone over to prepare the house and meet us over there and stuff. After all that, we'd just come down to the Sunshine Coast for what was meant to be a 2-week thanks everyone, see your family, love you, see you in who knows when. But slowly but surely the 2 weeks turned into more weeks, months, and eventually it's 3 months down the track and we're still here, and everyone's saying TIA, this is Africa, the visa's just still going. And but by then the rest of the team had gone, and we were able to train the team that we were going to be leading, the kids team and the hosting team and everyone, and we'd trained them, and it was up and it was going, and the church launched and it was fabulous, and
it must have been so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was like beautiful and really very hard, and so we kind of figured, okay, I don't think Africa's happening now. Like clearly things are up and rolling, and they don't really need us by the looks of it. So I sort of started to process that, and then it all came to a point where we got taken out for dinner and all this, and I was halfway through my steak, and we were told that not only was Africa off the table, but also we just didn't have a job anywhere in Australia or Africa.
So it really seems like missions is a big focus of your life. Yeah. So what are, whether it's Africa or Solomon, what are your plans for the future?
The future, everybody always asks, what's your elevator pitch? And right now we don't have one yet, because the truth is we just want to help people, and what that help looks like, I guess we're still refining it, hey? So for us right now, it's finding and meeting and partnering with those communities and finding out what they do need. So far it's been clean running water, and now we've discovered the health needs, and somewhere else it might be more like supporting them with agricultural support to grow their own food and that side of things. So we've started in the Solomons because obviously, we know the culture, and
so really that like unable to get to Africa was really veering you in the direction where you meant to be.
Yeah, that's right. That was actually the word that God gave me through it all, the grieving of it all. It was, you thought it was that side. I want you to go to the other side. Yeah, wow. And at the same time, I got the image of just driving up and over Alex and sort of, that eastern side of Australia, which even at the time, we weren't actually thinking yet about the Solomons or about this global, because obviously we had plans and we were just grieving the loss of that.
I know Adam has mentioned something about digging wells, and I know that's something that you've done and are continuing to hope to do. Yeah. I know how important that is to some of those really remote places. I mentioned it in his podcast that I went to PNG, and just seeing simple infrastructure like that, and actually it doesn't cost us a great deal to do that. That's right. And I think it's amazing that you guys are trying to bring help to really these remote areas. And I'm probably moving into the gold now, that really your life is about purpose. And in everything that you look for, even in your speech therapy, it's all about purpose, and it's purpose for the greater good of others. I just think that is just like really is what your motive of your whole life is. And it's what drives you. And that drives you to go to some places, to go to remote places. It's not easy. You're giving them running water because they don't have it. So you actually have to live in those environments, and those things are not easy. And so you're prepared to sacrifice, you're prepared to do it rough and do it tough in order to benefit other people. And your faith plays such a big part in that with you guys. And it's beautiful. You've got a really beautiful heart. I can see that, Lauren. And I know that you're going to be successful in what you do. And whatever you offer to those communities, however big or small it is, I know it's going to have ripple effects for them and will really significantly impact them. So thank you for sharing your story. You're such an inspiring person, really. And I wish you all the best with Zoe Global Ministries, Zoe Allied Health. I know you're just starting out.
Yes.
There's a long way to go, and maybe Africa isn't as far off as you think. So.
I love that when we interviewed Adam, he was telling us how Zoe means life.
Yes.
And even though you suffered the death of the dream of going to Africa, you were veered into this other area where you're now providing fresh water and bringing life to the Solomons.
Exactly.
And I love seeing how your life has taken this detour, which felt bad, but it's actually led to life for others. So,
well, final question I want to know is do you speak their language?
I'm learning. Me like I'm a little bit kakai.
What does that mean? Me like a little bit kakai.
I like a little bit of food because otherwise you get a plate of rice that's like this big.
Oh, right. Okay. So that's a good phrase for you.
It's important. Nice. We'll have to remember that one. So, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So good. Thanks for coming in, Lauren.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
So, Ange.
Yes.
How'd you enjoy Lauren's podcast?
Yeah, it's good. I've never met a speech pathologist before.
You said that almost well. Just try it again.
The thing, speech pathologist. Speechy.
Speechy. That's why we abbreviate it.
I found that so funny. Like a speech pathologist to make you pronounce your words and done the typical Aussie thing and abbreviates everything. Yeah. I don't get the pathology part because I thought that was a study of blood.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? Speech pathology. I didn't ask the question. I wished I'd asked it now. So how we talk is in our blood.
We'll have to get Lauren back in.
I should stop talking now before I make myself look really stupid and uninformed. No, but isn't she just lovely? Yeah. And how she her life is on purpose for every purpose.
It's so outgiving, isn't it? Like she's always giving out to community, to family, to friends, but then to that thread throughout her life where she thought she wanted to be ended up being a different place that she was meant to be.
Well, how many times have we seen that, Beck?
I know.
Like, we've talked about it all the time. Just in the people's stories, there's always detours or there's always unexpected things that happen in people's lives. But then it just seems to direct them to where they're meant to be and where they find their purpose.
Yeah, that's right. Ends up being for the best. And it's like, I reckon if we had control of our own lives and directed it where we think we should be, we'd be so disappointed. Because where it ends up being is so much better, isn't it? Even though we think it's like a bad thing at the time, it ends up being for the best.
I do think it's fascinating, though, why somebody would choose speech pathology, like as a speech therapist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not kind of it's not a very common, well, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't seem like it's a very common sort of industry to go into.
Yeah, well, it sounds like she had a choice of whatever she wanted to be because she was looking at being a doctor. So she's obviously very intelligent and then decided she didn't want to spend years paying all the insurances and not getting anywhere until she was 40. And I guess at 17 years of age, you just want to jump into a career, don't you?
Yeah.
But it's very one-on-one and she's great with people. So it really suits her, doesn't it?
I think the most rewarding thing about it would be watching how somebody's world comes alive to them by being able to communicate. Yeah. Not being able to communicate, we take that for granted. And so she must see that journey of somebody being able to finally communicate and the world opens up to them. That would be really rewarding.
And Lauren is just such an uplifter of other people. So for her to be able to work in that space as a speech pathologist and see those results would be, very rewarding.
So what was it she said? A little bit of caca. A little bit of caca. So like,
we've already.
I'm probably saying that completely wrong and saying something that is offensive or something. I best stop there. So that's it for today's podcast. You'll find us on all the major podcast platforms. The podcasts come out every Wednesday. We'd love to hear from you on our socials, the Gold Diggers Podcast. Tell us about your story so we can find the gold in you.
Easy as pie, lemon, apple or cherry. Loving you is so very sweet, sweet, sweet. How can it be such a piece of cake? And your smile is the icing. Loving you is a poem. Honey, you're my sugar.